How much does Chas McCormick factor in to Dana Brown trading Drew Gilbert and Ryan Clifford for Justin Verlander? How much of the equation do you think that played?
I don't think that there is that just happened by accident. When we were talking about this the other day and yesterday again, I really believe that I understand that there were thoughts Drew Gilbert was your center fielder of the future, and you didn't know when that future would start for him. Was it 2 years down the road? Is it 3 years down the road? In the grandiose of grand plans, if he kept raking on every level, maybe next year he was in the equation. But I think it was at least 2, maybe 3 down the road. With as good as Chas is playing, under team control, and the fact that he's shown you everything he has to show you both offensively and defensively, I don't think that that's any secret that Dana Brown looked at what he's got and said, I think this kid, even if he doesn't have the kind of offensive year that he's having this year completely, and he can't string it together that consistently next season, he's better than most on both sides of the baseball to where I feel comfortable putting him in center field.
Yeah, I don't know how much it played a part into trading him, to trading Gilbert and Clifford, a couple of outfield prospects. Now, part of this conversation is that Chas McCormick he signed with the Astros through 26. He's under club control at the Astros until the 2026 season, through the 2026 season, when he's 31 years old. So it's kind of the beauty of Chas McCormick, is that you're going to get the best 6 years of his career, and you're going to pay him very little money. You're probably not re-signing Chas McCormick at the age of 32. Now, what I found interesting, and I was busy yesterday. I didn't have an opportunity to, I didn't prep for the show. I wasn't on the show. Last night was the first time that I got around to listening to Dana Brown, the press conference, talk about the trade. I was really surprised when Dana Brown said that Drew Gilbert wasn't a center fielder. He said that he's very hesitant to trade players from the middle of the field, catcher, short, center field. But Dana said he traded 2 corner outfielders. So they view Gilbert as a corner outfielder. They don't view him as a center fielder. I went and looked at Gilbert's game logs and positional, like where he's playing, and he has split most of his time in center field and in right field. But hearing Dana Brown say that in his press conference makes me believe that they don't think Drew Gilbert is an everyday center fielder. They think he's an everyday corner outfielder, and quite frankly, if that comes to fruition, if Dana Brown is right that he's a corner outfielder and not a center fielder, that does diminish Drew Gilbert's value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought a lot of his comments were really interesting, because I know there's the one that you talked about on Twitter, Jeremy. We talked about it yesterday, where he called these guys everyday players, but then he also called them average.
Well, he called them they're going to be good big leaguers, and they're average everyday guys. Yeah. It was really in the same breath.
Yeah, we were trying to analyze that. What exactly does that mean? Because to me, it feels like you got a Steve. You were giving away a Steve Kerr and another, a sixth man type player.
You were
giving away stud players.
You know who I heard? You know the first player I thought of whenever he said that? And look, Drew Gilbert's been compared to this guy before, so it's not like a unique comparison. Brett Gardner, Cole Calhoun, that type of player. Whenever he said that, because a lot of times
gritty, has some pop.
Yeah, but not a center fielder. Right. He's a corner outfielder that's probably doesn't hit as good for the position as you would like. He's not a slugger, but he's a solid player. And also as a general manager, when you're talking about prospects, most prospects that you have in your system aren't big leaguers. So whenever you call a guy a big leaguer, that means that's a compliment. He's going to make the bigs. But to say that he's going to be a big leaguer, but then an average big leaguer, it goes to tell me that maybe Dana Brown wasn't over the moon with Drew Gilbert like all of we are. And also, look, Drew Gilbert wasn't on every single top 100 list.
Not only that, Jeremy, Drew Gilbert was not a Dana Brown guy. Drew Gilbert was in the system before Dana Brown.
Yeah, and Dana Brown spoke highly of him. He claims that the Braves would have drafted Gilbert, or he was on the Braves' radar because they were picking next that year.
Sure.
But that's also something that I think people just say. But new GM doesn't ever really they don't beat down the guys in the system. You see them trade them, and that's when you get the truth about how they really feel.
But the point that I was making, simply because of the fact that I've experienced it, is general managers in every sport want their guys that they have put the work in on, and they feel a certain way for. When they inherit somebody else's guys, sure, there's plenty of times when you inherit a guy and go, there's no question, this is a player. I like this kid. But there's also a lot to be said, and I saw Daryl Morey do this a lot. Daryl Morey came in, not my kind of guy. I don't think it was as much about he didn't draft him or he didn't develop him, but he has a certain guy in mind for him doing his job for this team. That might not be his type of guy. So, a lot of things could have factored in here.
Another thing, too, is that maybe they learned that he's not going to be a center fielder. Like, whenever Dana Brown said that was around spring training, right? Like, wasn't it before the start of the season?
Yeah, it was like right when he got hired.
So, like, a lot has happened between then and now. Like, one, Drew Gilbert has had the elbow issues, but maybe they've learned that Gilbert's range in center field isn't very good. Maybe he has to be a corner outfielder because his range isn't fantastic. So, a lot can change in those few months, especially with a young player. Like, Drew Gilbert didn't play a whole lot of professional baseball last year. Right. He got hurt pretty quickly after his professional debut. So, like, most of the information you have about Drew Gilbert as a professional baseball player comes this season. It comes after Dana Brown said that he's, like, enamored with Drew Gilbert. So I agree with you, Joe, that that's something that you say about your prospects. We love them all. You should always tell all your prospects you love them. One, because it's good for the prospect. Two, because other teams around the league are like, oh, they love Drew Gilbert. I want him when I'm trading Justin Verlander.
At the same time, Drew Gilbert was also challenged by Dana Brown early on in the season and before the season started, and the tone of it was, hey, Drew, if you perform, you could be up this year. Like, maybe it was a September call-up, but so Dana Brown also, like, issued that challenge just to Drew Gilbert publicly, saying, like, hey, man, like let me see what you got.
I think there's a chance if they didn't trade Drew Gilbert that he would have been up this year.
Yeah.
Like, I think he'd be up in September.
I do too, because if Corey Julks continues to struggle, if Jake Myers is giving you just mediocre production in the outfield, why wouldn't you? Like, if the Brantley injury too continues to hold form, I think he would have been an option had you not traded him.
And I think Brantley, again, the sprinkles. I'm just going to call them the sprinkles and the icing. But the Brantley situation could have gone either way. You might have looked for an extra bat on the bench if you knew that for sure he wasn't going to be around. But even if he's hitting, now you're using September truly as just like an audition for guys that maybe it's this year, maybe it's next year, but you just want a further evaluation against big league talent, to where I think that Gilbert and John Singleton could have been guys that were up just to see. Sure, it would have been a big bonus if they could help this year, but it would give you a really deep dive into what they could be on the big league level as you move forward, or at least a first indication. And I think that that's something you might have seen.